So there's that. And then here in the private chat, I'm gonna send the YouTube link. This should be the YouTube link.
Okay, looks like we're already live.
Yeah, we're diving right in this time. So people can see this is really live, not recorded. And okay, looks like we're back on the other one. So I'm gonna go ahead on Twitter and basically tell people that they should go to the other one. Leave here. So tweet this one out. Quote tweets. Looks like people already found us. Welcome back. Hi there.
Hey.
Okay, so that's good. And I'm going to quickly tweet. We had technical issues.
So they know where to find us. They know where the channel is.
Yep. Guess they checked the channel and found the new one. New link. There we go. Transmission was cut. Well, at least we know people are watching, so that's also good.
Mm-hmm. We're not letting you escape so fast. That's right.
Okay, let's wait 2 more minutes or 1 more minute. Let's quickly move this one here, and I'm gonna dump it in the old chat actually. So I guess.
Hey, Kate, how are you?
Kate here. Hey there. Good to see you, Kate. Kate's on my list as well to get invited. So prepare, Kate. Gonna figure out what we're gonna talk about.
That's what happens. You say something in the chat, and then it's like, hey, cue you up for a future stream.
And I guess this is how I got onto your stream as well, Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. And actually something. And now that we're going freestyle anyway, we might as well just blow all the plan away. Who cares about the router at this point? But actually, do you know that being on your stream is the direct cause of having created the Angular Community Discord, which we already count about 11,000 members and plus. We're reaching 12,000 members, I guess, this month.
Oh, really? Wow! Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a Friday morning for me, at least. I guess for you as well. Friday morning stream, and I checked the stream, and you were plugging the new NTRX Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And I had recently re-downloaded Discord and just checking out what happened there. And I saw the Discord, and that's where I met Steve, or re-met Steve, and I know each other from Angular CLI work back in the days, 2017. And Steve was like, hey, I got this Discord all wired up, but I can't do it alone. Do you want to do it with me? And this is how the Angular Discord got born, because I was in dire need for chatting with community people. So, like COVID and just nobody to talk about with tech and no conferences and stuff. And so we decided to start it, but it's really you plugging this NGRX Discord where I just came and say hi, and then Steve pinged me directly like, hey sir, how are you? And how about doing this? And I was like, yeah, we might be able to pull something off that's useful. And
I did not know that. It seems like every so often people will say something and it was like, yeah, Brandon said this, and then I started doing it. I was like, where did I cut? Where I don't even know how I got into the mix of some of these things. I guess I'm just out here doing stuff, and people are watching me do it, and then they do the same thing. But yeah, I did not know that. But yeah, the Angular Discord has like taken off like a rocket as soon as you and Steven definitely started working on that and shepherding it. So you could definitely see like the trajectory of where it was, of how it just, like I said, shot up after you all took over that. So kudos to you and him for taking that on.
Thanks. Yeah. And I really like this I think it's like kind of the chaos effect, right? You say something in the chat and then bam, knockoff effect. And Kate is like, really, that would be awesome. Yeah, that's definitely awesome.
That was
here. And
that was why I when I was doing Angular Unfiltered before, it was kind of like that same thing. I wanted to talk to people like you and other people in the Angular community who I think are doing cool stuff, or like communities in general, to have, like I said, have that conversation so that I could talk to people that I don't normally talk to, and then other people could see them and get their name and stuff out there also. Because I do have some sort of platform in the Angular community, so I would like to share that with others.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, you definitely do. And I mean, you have about like 6,500 followers on Twitter, which is it's a big amount of people. Like if you think about it, and like we've seen each other in person. We met each other on Engine Atlanta, the first one, and but by then that was like 2017. We already knew each other from Twitter. I think Twitter. I don't think I was active there. For me, you're one of the OGs in the Angular community. Like, there's a few people, and it's interesting how that works. Like, you never know who sees you like as an example, or who sees you as like a leader of sorts, even that you're not pretending to be. Your I guess appearance somewhere that really helps.
Yeah, that's true.
So what I'm curious about, what got you into tech? How long have you been working in the industry? Did you do something else? Did you go from school into this straight away? What's your history here?
Yeah, so I have been in tech as long as I can remember. Well, I always wanted to get into tech, even when I was little, but I didn't have like a concrete idea of like what that actually meant. But like I grew up around computers. I had like I'm going to date myself, but I had like a Commodore 64. I used to spend hours and hours on that, playing Spider-Man and typing commands into the terminal and making computers do stuff back then. So
early 80s, right?
Yeah. Yep. Early 80s. So yeah, I like growing up as a kid, I had a computer. Like my dad worked on computers, so we always had computers around. And like I said, I spent my fair share of time on them. And so going up through high school and things, like I took programming classes in high school. So that was probably my real first introduction into like writing software and anything like that, because it was a class that they were offering where we were writing software in QBasic of all things. So I always remember that class because I ended up making a basketball game in that class as like my final project for the for the school year. So that was me getting into programming early. So after that, I went off to school, and I started out actually in electrical and computer engineering when I left high school. But I more or less did that because I had other cousins and other relatives, like they were engineers. So they was like, "You're smart. Why don't you go be an engineer too?" And I was like, "Well, okay, I guess I can do that." Or, I mean, I was good at math and stuff. So I went off to college, but like I wasn't really focused or anything like my first time through. So I basically wasted my first year of college and then came back home. But I always still I knew that, of course, the thing that I excelled in college, amongst other things, was the programming classes.
Sure.
And I think we were doing MATLAB in that programming class. And it was like, it was the one class that I always enjoyed going to. Yeah. So I always knew that I was going to like get into software or some level of engineering in that way. So I left school, came back home, worked for a few years, then got back into college, and ended up working. Like I actually worked at the college that I went to school at. So worked out for me because I was able to. Because when you work for the school, at least for here, they help pay for your school. So that helped me to study. Like I was working at the school, but I wasn't doing a tech job, right? I was like working in the like financial aid office, trying to help people, basically working in computer systems, but not necessarily working on them. So
like administrative more.
Yeah, more administrative work.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I kind of worked my way through college and ended up going through that. And once I graduated college, then I actually got my first job, my first tech job, a little while after I graduated college. So I have been, like I said, always been trying to get into tech and trying to get into the industry. And this was like even before I knew that it was like there was these barriers of people trying to keep other people from getting into tech, right? I was like unaware of any of that stuff. I was like, I'm just working, trying to get my foot in the door. Okay. And my first job as a programmer was doing PHP actually. So I was a back end developer doing PHP. I was working like a government job, building. PHP was the primary like language back then. So we were doing everything on server side and then sending all the HTML back to the client and everything like that. So that's kind of how, at least from there, that was my first tech job that I started in. But like I said, I was a back-end developer, and this was even before Angular, before I even got introduced to Angular and AngularJS at the time, and other JavaScript libraries, because everything we did back then was, like I said, primarily PHP, and then like sprinkling of some JavaScript back then, just to do something fancy, like I don't know, make a button do something, block the user input or something like that. But this was even way before I got into like client side stuff.
Yeah, I remember those days where like jQuery was the new hot thing, where you didn't have to worry about different browsers and those things like MooTools and Scriptaculous.
Oh man,
these things were so fancy for me. But if you would have told me back then, I guess like what is it, like let's say 26 or something, 29 around then, that I would be enjoying writing JavaScript full time. Like, okay, now we have TypeScript, which makes it even more enjoyable. But I did pure JavaScript as well, and I would have told you were crazy. Like this unimaginable enjoying JavaScript. I mean, at least for me, it was like a faraway thing. But interesting. And one interesting thing that you touch on, like nobody was basically keeping, like I guess gatekeeping is the term they use today, where it's like, but I guess people that are out here. You can be very successful in programming and actually have a fun and enjoyable job without having computer science degree per se. And this is definitely something that I think it's good if people realize that. And
like I said, I'll say it for the record, I don't have a computer science degree. I studied, like I said, I started out in engineering, and I figured out that that's not what I wanted to do, wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I had the choice of, when I was going back to school or trying to get back into school, I was looking at computer science, or what I ended up going into was management information systems, which is kind of more of a mix of technology and business. So that was kind of I made that choice intentionally because I knew that I could learn like the tech part of it and learn the programming part of it, but I still wanted to get that knowledge of like business systems and dealing with, people in other areas that would kind of give me more of a mix of the two things.
Got it. Yeah. I have a similar background where I think in my university was called business informatics. Business informatics. It was kind of the bridge between the business and the IT department. But I personally never written a compiler, and I don't really see myself doing it anytime soon.
No, I have not written a compiler. I've watched videos of other people writing compilers, and it seems interesting, but I don't have any much interest in doing it myself. So like only like having a computer science degree is to me, it only comes up like when I'm struggling sometimes. Like I have the whole imposter syndrome coming out, and I see other people like slinging code, and I'm like, man, if I only had a computer science degree, I could do that. But I see many more people out here doing the same thing without formal computer science degree. So it's more or less a matter of me learning how to do that thing than I don't say that to discount, computer science degrees, but you can still, have like I said, a good career in tech without one, like you said.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Not to diminish anybody who does have it. A lot of respect for people who do. It seems like a super hard thing to get into, but awesome. So the reason for the show and the reason I invited you, well, you've also been on the list. You're one of the inspirations I had for starting my own channel, and thanks for that.
See, here we go again. Like,
man, sorry, man.
I'm out here doing stuff, and then you started a channel, and then Zach started a channel too. Yeah. And I'm like, great. Now I'm not the only one out here trying to do that. So yeah.
No, it was at the time. I think about August. You had one. Like Zach was just getting started, and he was doing it like a week every day, and he was like just out there pushing live content.
Yeah, Zach was cranking. He was cranking them out for sure. He was cranking out the episodes. He was like going full blast, and I was like, "Hey, if that's what you want to do, go right ahead." But I didn't have the energy for it at the time.
Yeah, no, I tried a little bit just to get started, but then I realized it's it's quite a lot of work, and just better try and do one each week. And another Santosh, obviously can't miss out on Santosh, and so definitely a few people around that time that motivated me. So you were on the list from the start implicitly, like when I have Brandon on, but then the Angular component router got announced. Like you worked on something. I'm not sure if I should call it experimental or if it's
I would still say it's sort of experimental at this point, just because I need some more people to use it and file some issues. That way I know that somebody's using it and like pushing it and breaking it and stuff. So it has been officially, like I said, we can talk about it more, but it has been officially like released and published and everything, and it's usable. But I need some more people to like battle test the thing.
Got it. Okay. So could you give us a quick rundown of what it is? I know you worked on this with Miroslav Jonas, one of the like, what is it? Why do we actually care about this? And then afterwards we can do the show and tell.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a quick trip back in time to where, I guess, how we got here. So I like working on routers has been like my thing in Angular. Actually got into the Angular project because of the router, mainly. I started contributing to Angular back in the alpha and beta days. And I knew that I had some experience with AngularJS I had experience building apps with AngularJS, and of course everybody, or mostly everybody, remembers the ng route, the one that was built in. But at least from my experience, nobody used that one. Yeah. So it was always you use AngularJS and then you use UI router was the default one that you would use. So I started. This was back, like I said, back when AngularJS was slowing down, and then Angular was coming in, and the Angular router was kind of there. They were still working on it at the time, I believe, and when they were trying to get Angular 2, as it was called, out the door. But the router wasn't. It seemed like to me the router wasn't getting much love and attention. So I started helping on GitHub to try to help, basically push the router forward, because I didn't want us to repeat the same thing again. I wanted the Angular router to be, good enough so that we had everything, like you could have everything with the Angular ecosystem, like out of the box. And like the router seemed like the one thing that was always kind of secondhand, in my opinion, as far as being something that you could use. So like I said, helped on GitHub, helped with issues, tried to fix some bugs here and there, do what I could um, to try to help the Angular router get moved along. So it was Angular router was moving along. This was probably around the same time that NGRX was being formed, I guess. Um, so Angular router, NGRX store was around, and then we was like, hey, why don't we just build another router? Why don't we just build another router over here on the side in NGRX and see what we can do with that? Because we had some different ideas. I say we, I mean we as in me and Mike, my buddy Mike Ryan, for those who don't know. Me and Mike were talking about why don't we build another router and see what we can do, because we don't know, if we were unsure about what the Angular router was going to be. So we went off and did that, and like people started using it. People started using the NGRX router as it was back then, and so it was being used, and I guess history was repeating itself. People were using NGRX router because it was ready to go, and then we had discussions with the Angular team about how can we like merge these two things together. So I remember we had a conversation at NGConf that year. I can't remember which particular year it was, but
2017, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it would have been 2017 because I believe I gave a talk that year at NGConf about the Angular router. But this was like after those conversations had happened. So we had conversations with the Angular team. We actually talked to them personally about like how can we how can we turn NGRX router into the Angular router? And like I said, we had conversations with them. Then this is where like Victor Safkin got involved. Of course, he basically wrote the Angular router with inspiration from the NGRX router. So there was some natural, you can actually go back on GitHub and see, you can look at like where the NGRX router was and then kind of where we stopped development on that. And then you see how it kind of turned into what the Angular router is or was back then, because it's definitely changed a lot since we initially started it.
Interesting. And actually, I think this is kind of this really helped your application at Narwhals, I assume, because if you help Victor create the router, this is like you don't need an application letter, I guess. I'm joking.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Narwhal definitely, I definitely had at least some level of people can see what I do and before I joined there. So yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think doing open source work tremendously helps your career in like visibility. If this is something you want to work in,
Yeah,
that's
because
awesome.
I hadn't done a lot of open source. Well, I say a lot, pretty much any open source before I got involved in Angular. I had probably done maybe a couple of pull requests here and there, but nothing substantial. So open source has definitely opened a lot of doors for me and allowed me to help a lot of other people also, because that's probably what I enjoy about it most, is being able to build stuff and help others. So, but yeah, like I said, open source has done a ton for me, and it keeps paying off. So I'm fully invested.
Yeah, same here. And for me, it was literally life changing. I've on your show, I think I talked about this, how it got me into traveling, got me into Colombia, got me to meet my wife, and then a whole slew of other things that it made possible that might have happened otherwise. I don't know. You never know. But I definitely contributed to just being out there, and people see your name, keep seeing same face, same name.
Yeah, it's like
Awesome.
like you said, who knows how we would have met, or if we would have met prior to that, if I would have just like stuck to my job that I was doing at the time, heads down, and just kind of behind the desk all day, just doing the 9 to 5 thing. So definitely, like I said, opens up things more in more ways than one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And for me, I was working at a startup, and all of a sudden, I guess this is where also your profile came along. All of a sudden, I figured, hey, there's an Angular community on Twitter. There's like people on Twitter, and I wasn't really active on Twitter. I had it like from way back, but all of a sudden, you're like, you can actually communicate with these folks right away. And you could just ping them if you have like a question, and kind of. Yeah, it kind of opened a whole other area for me. Like, hey, you can actually talk with like-minded people. And you don't not need to be in the same room with them. You can just meet them online.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same for me too. I've been on Twitter for a long time before I actually got active, and then got, some sort of following on there. But yeah, like you said, my Twitter account used to be, and there's probably still sprinkles of this there already, but my Twitter account was more or less sprinkled with talking about cell phones and Android and stuff like
Sports.
that. Yeah, sports. It was a lot more. I don't think I dropped a whole lot of gifts back then. If I think, like, if you go back to my, if you go back to my timeline, like way back, you'll probably see that I didn't have as many gifts and everything on Twitter as I do now. But I was probably thinking that I just wasn't tweeting about it at the time.
Right. Yeah. Same here. For me, first Twitter things, I actually went back 2-3 years ago to my first tweets, interacting just with people I knew from real life that I happened to have in Twitter, which was then getting more into a group chat because we didn't really have WhatsApp or any group apps at that time. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, like I said, and then I'll give away a secret on the show. My Twitter handle that I have now is not my original Twitter name. I had another one, and I'm not going to give it away because somebody's probably going to find it anyway. But my Twitter name was a lot different than it is now. But my content was probably about the same. But it was like I signed up. But of course, you do the thing like, what name should I use? Like I'm just going to throw this in there. I'm going to put some things together, and that'll be my username. Yeah. And then I ended up changing it to I don't know, be more transparent or whatever. I don't know why. I just wanted a different name than the one that I had. So yeah, like I said, thing pops up right there. You can follow me on Twitter there. But yeah, like I said, little nugget Twitter history there.
Yeah. Well, we reach out a free like and a free give if you find out the original Twitter name, Brandon. So one of the things that I always remember. So in your introduction, I've seen a ton of the NGRX things you did, mostly with Mike, and love your dynamic, by the way, between you guys. That's just funny to watch. And but there you always have same intro, and that really works. It's like the narrative, like, hey, I'm Brandon T. Roberts on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter where I post funny gifs and stuff about tech, and that also really works building your brand, whether you like it or not. And to that extent, I'm like, people call me, you're the salesman of Angular Discord, and I generally hate salespeople. I don't really like salespeople. I think they're annoying, and just if I want something, I go get it, and you don't have to come to me, tell me what I want, right? But doing this channel, I actually saw myself converting in somebody that like promotes my stuff, promote my content. I started caring about okay, I want people to watch this stuff, and how can I make it better? And this kind of gets me into the area where, like, yeah, you're actually branding yourself at some point. And for me, that was pretty much outside of my comfort zone. It's definitely not something I did normally. How's that for you?
Yeah, it's the same for me. Like, I'm not intentionally out here trying to build a brand per se, but I am intentional about how I want to be, how my account portrays who I am. So I don't want to be someone who's like constantly negative on Twitter or on social media and things like that. So that's, not to say that I'm not ever angry or mad or anything, but yeah, like I said, my Twitter account, if you look at it, is mostly positive. And then I have been making more of an effort to talk about things that like impact me personally. But yeah, like I said, me being like you said, having a consistent way like that, introduce myself, and it does build that brand up, and people recognize me, at least in the Angular space, because of that. So I do enjoy like interacting with people on Twitter and things like that. So, and like I said, I'm not a salesman. I'm not a salesman either. I'm not out here trying to sell. I'm not even out here trying to sell open source, which is what I do. But I do enjoy, like you said, talking to people, seeing what their issues are with like the software that I may produce or something like that, and try to make it better. So, and that way I'm working to make it better for them, and which I guess but I'm not necessarily trying to sell like what I'm building. I don't think if you go back through my Twitter timeline, you won't see me like selling NGRX. I don't think. I'm not saying like you have to use it or you're a bad programmer or anything like that. I always, or at least I've reached a point now to where if you use it, that's great. And I want to make sure that the experience of you using it is going to be great also. And if you don't, that's fine too. So I'm more targeting the people that are using it, and then the people that, come to start using it, then, that cycle kind of keeps going. So we want to make sure that the people that are using it are at least getting the most out of it.
Yeah. I guess lucky position of NGRX being the first state management library for Angular. It's like the golden standard, more or less. And it's like, hey, I'm either using NGRX or an alternative. And that's kind of it's maybe, let's put it, it's maybe the iPhone of state management system. It's like you either pick the one that everybody know and heard of, and a lot of people like and a lot of people dislike for whatever reason, or you're one of the others. And then like let's say Android is then like you're either Samsung or you're like LG or Motorola. It is
my buddy Josh always said that he wouldn't use NGRX because it was too mainstream, and I was like, what? So what does that even mean? What does that even mean? But he was saying, like I said, saying the same thing that you're saying, that we were first, so we kind of have that first mover advantage of having something that's established out there already, and then the others that, because of course there are other. There was state management in Angular before NGRX came along, so it was just we formalize some of those things into a pattern that people could follow. But soft services and subjects was always a thing, and other libraries have come along since NGRX was started, and people can definitely use those. Like Akita or NGXS or even just vanilla Redux itself. So we definitely have gained that, I guess, that badge over time of being the default, but it wasn't something I was like aiming for to happen.
Yeah, that's great. No, and you don't really come off that way either. And cool. So I think normally, like in the classic BLS, before I did interview kind of stuff, we were like 10 minutes into code, and we're in like 40 minutes right now. We took a short improvised break, but I think if you're up to it, it's time to share the screen and go look into. Let me actually share it. Go look into the app that I built. It's a Jewel. I started maybe 10 minutes before the show. So it's an NX workspace, just because Narwhal, and I'm actually on days with Narwhal
you're
people
rocking. You're rocking the Narwhal Pride shirt there.
Narwhal Pride, there you go. And always when I have somebody related to Narwhal on, I when I think about it, I do it. So NX workspace, and I didn't do a whole lot with it. What I created was a application called Web, an Angular application called Web, and I have 4 libraries. The shell, which is actually showing this navigation here, and it has a router outlet inside, and I got 3 routes: home, contact, and post. And I guess this is pretty standard off-the-shelf Angular work if you do it this way. And what I aim to do, I'm not sure what your idea about it is. So my app component actually looks like this. Do your app components look the same way, or do you have to do more stuff?
You mean just in general without Angular? Yeah, in general, yeah. When I'm using Angular router, the app component is definitely pretty thin. There's usually, like I said, just a router outlet, or maybe even like a header and a footer component, if you know those are going to be always there. But yeah, mainly it's the router outlet is the only thing in there.
Yeah, got it. And so that also allows me to get rid of those. And then the app module, and then something that I didn't even know was possible. I didn't even know it was possible. It never occurred to me. I in the app module, I don't even do for root anymore. So what I used to do was lazy load this one, and then do for child as of here. But actually, you can just skip that and import it like any other module. And my for root lives here in my shell. Here it is, and that way I never ever have to touch my app.
I see. But, I like that.
Cool. So this is kind of a structure, and I think it's pretty basic. I didn't go into the next level, and then my homepage is just home. And for context, I had the idea, but I was short on time. I wanted this to be a parent-child route, so I got a contact detail, which is sitting behind here. Like if you say contact/1, and it should load the. It doesn't do it. It should load the contact detail. I'm not sure why. We can take a look at that. And posts, I guess, then also doesn't. The post here you see post detail and post list. So you have like nested routes here, I guess. But this is, as you said, it's the standard routing setup with the Angular router, and one I personally really like. I've worked with other frameworks, and this is one thing I always miss. Like this, it works well, and then why change it? What is?
There we go. Now we get into the question of the hour. I can give a quick backstory on kind of where the Angular component router like originated, but yeah, like I said, we built the Nginx router, turned into Angular router, and then ng modules came along and added some more stuff to that, and but like I always wanted to have something different. Like the Angular router has grown and grown and grown, and I feel like there's still some space for innovation in the Angular ecosystem, at least if nothing for having maybe a couple more options there for different types of apps. So that was kind of the motivation behind Angular component router, and I wanted to see. And some of this came out of Ivy. Of course, we know Ivy was a big thing, a big effort, and opened the possibility of doing some of these things, opened up the possibility of doing some of these things. So Angular component router is something that builds off of that idea that Ivy puts us in a place where we can get back to using more components for routing than having the traditional ng module setup that we have here. So yeah.
So this is something that I think Chow mentioned in the private chat, not online. But he was like, consider, because I was like, I always try to get stuff. This is something I mentioned to you as well. I try to get stuff out of my components. I prefer writing TypeScript and doing stuff there. I don't know why, but it's, I guess, preference. And like forms is a big one. I'm a big promoter of doing formly, so you don't have to write templates for your form. You just pull it all into in the TypeScript. So for me, it's like counterintuitive, right? You have some nice way to do stuff, I guess, declaratively. I guess that's what you call this. And then the component router is actually going to do it.
We're doing it the way you don't want to do it. We're doing it all in the template, not necessarily all of it, but most of it. I would say there's still some things that prevent us from maybe necessarily going all in, but yeah, for the most part, we're the Angular component router is about routing in the template.
Yeah. So this is an example from the README. It's github.com/angular-component/router. I'll link it in the description as well.
Chow says, "I'm here to change your mind about going to putting it in the template." He said, "You've already put the stake in the ground that I don't want to blowed up my template, and now here we are. So
Yeah,
we'll see
yeah.
how it goes.
When I see this, it's like, I mean, I get where this comes from in the terms of how you use it. I've used quite a lot of React over the last years, and the React
Hmm.
router, the de facto standard there is doing it this way. It's like very similar, where you have like a route component, and then inside your route, and then you link into the component itself. And I think for React, it feels pretty similar, but I've seen myself written this structure in React so that I can go back to my TypeScript and just do it there, then map over them.
Hmm.
Uh,
So what's
so
your opinion on like the the kind of bulk that the Angular router adds to your application? You're okay with that part of it?
bulk in like if I guess what I like most about it is that it's I think it's a great way to follow along how your app works. If
Hmm.
I did quite a bit of consultancy and I work on people just throw an app at me and like form your opinion, and most what I do is look the for root and start figuring out how the router is configured, so I just know which pages are there. So I think it really helps me build a mental model doing
Yeah.
this.
Evan in the chat said he's already bloated up his templates with Tailwind. So now,
Yeah, yeah, I
okay,
guess I'm
we're not gonna be hating on Tailwind. I like Tailwind. So
yeah, no, but
uh, we're
same
going
here.
all because I'm
Yeah,
going all
loading up
in.
templates. Yeah, and I mean that's a very fair point from Evan. I'm using Tailwind, which blows up my templates hugely.
Hmm.
It's probably kind of a selective thing, and it might very well just be being
Yeah,
useful.
we want the trade offs to be worth it for sure. If we're going to be like doing the routing in the template, we want to have that be as minimal as possible. And like I said, part of it is also uh, having a simpler mental model about how you do routing in
Yeah,
Angular. So that those things kind of played into it also.
got it. So yeah, so but to give some critique, the load children. So the first load children syntax, I guess Angular, what is it, 4, 5, 6 ish,
Hmm.
before we could do these imports. It really had to grow on me because I thought it was dog ugly, and like having a string with a hashtag and then having
Hmm.
a path there and didn't autocomplete, so your editor doesn't really help you. It's like turning into magic strings. I didn't like it, and for in my first apps, I was just not using lazy loading because I didn't care and I didn't like the syntax. And this is a bit better, but it's pretty, how do you say it, verbose, I guess is the word.
Yeah, I actually wrote. This is of course another thing I wrote back in the day, which is still out. Somebody actually opened an issue on it the other day, which I thought was very interesting. Seeing, like you said, seeing as how we've moved from strings to being able to do the imports this way. But what it did was the name of it was called Angular Router Loader, and it was a Webpack loader that took that string and basically turned it into what we have in here now with the load children, like back
Got
then
it.
before it got official support for it, because it seemed like a better way um, to compile the routes and things to build them that way. And like you said, instead of using the strings with the hash and the
Yeah.
module, which was, of course, you got a typo in there, and like you're already off the rails at that point. So
Yeah.
uh, that was probably one of my ways of trying to work around that to make it more sane in that way.
Yeah. Interesting. So, but yeah, I don't think I have a lot of critique about it. There's details. I would love it if path was just an empty string by default, because
Hmm.
if I do an empty string by default, we might as well get rid of it. So this is what I think would be the ideal thing. But um,
Mm.
that's really
Yeah,
nitty gritty.
now I see. They were you're getting like hardcore on the.
Yeah,
You
yeah, no,
want as much
definitely.
of it to disappear as possible.
Yeah,
Is what I hear.
and another thing, and this is also something I mean, so if we could have just a little bit of helper functions that could just do stuff like this, and of
Mm.
course it should return a route,
Hmm.
now a single route. Um, but if I can just say this is redirect to is my string, It seems like a super useful helper method to export out of the package and
Oh, I
just
see.
get it to this thing. So, and I'm not. This is just me building Angular apps for 4 years. This is what I come up with. Like, hey, it would be kind of cool if there was an industry standard, like community standard, maybe, to have a few helper methods that make the syntax a bit more concise. Because I do think it's verbose, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess if you see this one redirect to, if it would come from Angular router, and I've built apps this way that actually did it. I experiment with this stuff, but then the issue is I pick up a snippet of code and move it into another app, and there I don't have it. And this is then you're on a team, and then you have to like suggest to the team, like, hey, I got a brain fart and implement it. You implement it as well because I don't like writing it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But I can kind of, because if you have this one, then you can also see like, okay, you want to have a lazy loaded route where you just take the path and probably this whole method in that case, which I guess makes it a bit more concise. It's probably not a whole big deal.
Yeah, I think, I actually think that we want the same thing in our routers. We're just coming at it from a different way. I want to shrink down the amount of things that you have to do in order to get the router working and having, setting up your routes and things. In my, like I said, Angular component router is all about doing that in templates as opposed to structuring TypeScript code. But I think we're on the same path there. I like the ideas that you got there.
Awesome. Okay, got it. So that's great to know, because then we're basically looking at, as you said, fixing this similar issues. I think I'm a pretty critical dev, but at the other end, if I know something that works, I tend to go with it and run with it. And I used to do a lot more in the router, like resolvers and stuff. I was a big fan of doing resolvers, but I kind of got back to it. Not using that a whole lot anymore. And my routers are actually like this. And the only thing where it's off is like if you have a child route, and that's mostly what I do. I don't think. I mean, back in the days, I would go ahead and go as far as like make this menu here dynamic and then pass it along with the data, because then I don't have to do it in the component. And then you can say here, like, okay, we have like a data property here, data, and maybe here you have like routes or links or whatever, which is an array of these things. But I also kind of step back of it because it's not particularly better having it there than versus having it here. I figured. I mean, at some point, I guess there's a way. There's a reason.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, we can come up with. You could come up with a way for a justification for either one, I think.
Yeah. And I would personally be happy. So one of the downsides of this is not typed. So you don't, in the shell component, you're basically guessing, and then you have like, you need to know that it's on the strings property of your route data, which is kind of sad state of things. That's not happening. I know Chow doesn't really dislikes the fact that that thing's not typed. Okay, so cool. I think we got a pretty standard off-the-shelf router apps. Should I just go ahead and install it, and then can we refactor it and just check what's the difference like?
Yeah, sure.
And before that, let me create a quick commit, and let me go ahead and say this is Angular router, I guess is what I call the commit. While I'm at the shell, let me go ahead and do it. I need to check if I'm on Yarn. Adding this one, and this will most likely screw up my dev server because it tends to do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, restarting it is easier than trying to fix
switching out all the things at once is usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Or you're changing out the engine while you're driving.
Yeah, exactly.
About it.
Yeah, and I think this what is it called? The NGCC doing its thing doesn't really help either. But yeah, that's things you get used to and hopefully get phased out quick enough.
Yeah, we're all on the Ivy train, waiting for full Ivy, everything, and then we can stop having these intermediate compilers.
Yeah.
Because maybe we already got the Angular compiler, and now we got NGCC compiling things. Maybe we need to slow down on all the on all the compilers.
I mean, I guess it's a pretty good feat that you're able to move a whole ecosystem to a new rendering engine mostly without breaking your apps. That's definitely impressive.
Yeah, but, definitely a feat that is to be commended.
Yeah, but for me, I've screamed a lot to NGCC over the last year, but it got way better actually when it got introduced, like early 2020, early 2020. Oh man, it was not good. And actually, are we good here? We're good here. We have an app that's rendered, and we can still navigate through it. So okay, cool. So, gonna drop down terminal. Gonna look at the app. What's next? Where do I start implementing?
Okay, so this may be where let's start just from where, like how we would kind of put this together. So in your shell module here, you have a router outlet for root. So let's go into let's go into the app module first.
Yeah.
And just look and see what we have there. Because like I said, the setup is a little different because we have the shell module, okay, imports and the app component, and then the app component just has the router outlet in it. So I would say I'm just kind of looking at what we have here. You have your app component. Okay, let's go back to the shell module. I'm just kind of looking through things here. And then the shell component has what in it? Is it just empty or?
It's the navigation bar with another router outlet.
Okay, so another router outlet. Okay. But yeah, what we want to do first is add the in the app component. Well, let's add the component router module first. So in here, let's add component router module dot for root. Kind of like I said, similar to what you would have in the setup with the Angular router. So yeah, just for root. And then let's add exports here, exports property to the ng module. And then just export the component router module. And then what that is going to do is just allow the directives and the components to be, of course, to be available by anything that consumes the shell module. So I think the biggest difference here is, and you can tell me how we want to go about setting this up, is that in the top level, like in your app component, you have just a top level router outlet. But using things declaratively, we're going to need a router there to set up our initial routes. So you can like maybe do this in a couple of ways. We can do it by setting up the routes in here, or we can try to, like you said, have something that's similar to what just the top level router outlet is, and have it kind of open up to or use the nested routes out of the box, I guess, to see how that works. So let's start with adding a router here. Let's see how far we can get with this and see if this is gonna work the way that I think it should. But the one thing is that you will need a component here. So how we want to go about that, like if you have your shell, component, you can use your shell component directly in the template there, but you'd have to export it, but you would need to do that also.
Got it. So this is the name of the app, then dash shell, and if I go here into the module, I can just basically add this one to the.
So if you add, let's add the shell component there, and then so that makes the shell component available there. So if you add the app, I guess it's app shell component, just replace that, or however you set that up.
I guess if I wanted, so I guess this is the name.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, there you go. It renders the navigation bar twice.
Yep, that works. So let's take out you can take out the router outlet or comment it out however you want to do that.
Let's comment so people can see what we got rid of. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, if you were setting up just your shell app component, you could put your routes in here, but this way we can just use a component as like our top level router outlet per se.
Yeah, and this kind of makes this if you will, the entry point of the whole app.
Yep, that's true. So yeah, let's go into the shell module and let's comment out the router. Do we want to comment out the router module for root, or kind of just show them working in tandem? Yes, yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for now. So let's go into the shell component. And so we have a router outlet in here, and you have home, contacts, and posts. So in here, we need to set up just the top level routes. So instead of the router outlet here, you can just maybe put it above that and just put router, use a component, because we're all, like I said, we're doing everything in the components here. So we'll start with the router component itself.
Router, and it doesn't have a dash, just router like this.
No, yeah, just router. So yeah, you would have a router, and then so that gives you basically your top level router for your app. And then what we want to do next is set up routes. And you already have some lazy loading going on here, so we can tie into that too without too many changes there. So let's set up the home route first, and then we'll use the lazy loading also to kind of work into that. So yeah, you have a route, and then you want to set up, it works kind of similar. You want to set up a path for the empty or for the home route there. And the path could be the same. It's just home in the template there. And what we want to do here is you want to use the load, since we're going to be lazy loading everything there. Yeah. Let's start with, we'll start with the load there. And so what load does is you pass the load how you want to lazy load your module or your component, because this is one difference in Angular component router versus the Angular router also, is that if you want to just lazy load a component and render it, you can just load that as opposed to having to lazy load a module. Yeah, lazy load a module.
Got it.
So you can use a component directly there also.
But does that mean that we can add a component, lazy load it, doesn't need to be registered in any module?
Yes, that is true. You can, well, you would have to register it in a module, but the module is not the primary. The module is not the primary thing.
Got it.
What you would still lazy load it the same way. You would have like something that references the callback function with the import, and your component that you're lazy loading. If you're the scam pattern, where you just have a single component in a module, the module lives in with the component itself, but you don't have to reference it directly. So that's one way you can lazy load components without having to have the module be the first thing that gets processed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. But in this case, we do gonna take up the old module. So I got home module.
Yep.
Sitting in its own library.
Yeah. So let's do that. So we have our load, and this is, like I said, one of the things that you have to do And you may need double quotes there, but we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, so what you'll need to do is, this is where, like I said, the TypeScript part of it comes in. You'll need to define a property or like a map in your shell component for, let's just call them, or I'm trying to think what I usually call them, modules. So yeah, just do a property there and then just set that module to a map, or sorry, an object. So we're just creating an object with some keys in it. And we'll call that home, and then you essentially use the same syntax that you would use in your lazy loaded route there. Yep.
Like this.
Yep. Just like that. So if you go back to your component there, then in your template you can just say load modules dot home. Modules dot home, like that. Yep.
Not invoke it.
Right. Yeah, not invoke it. So yeah, that will, like I said, still lazy load that module, and then we'll have to add one more thing to render the home for that, or render the home component for that module. So if you go into the home module itself,
because this is now using the old router, right?
Yeah. So this one is currently using the old, or I guess it's using both routers at this point, because that is one thing. Angular component router can coexist with the Angular router. So if you're trying to like work the two things in, or you think that this one fits more dynamically in a place, then you can do that. So what we want to do in here is add a component. So we're going to create a component in here inside of where the module lives, to define the place where where it's going to tell what to render. Yeah. So we can call that home route component. And this is, like I said, pretty standard setup here. You have a component here. It doesn't have to have a selector because it's just going to be rendered dynamically, but it does need a template. Yeah, so you would declare it, add it to your declarations, and in here we're just going to set up. This is kind of the same way how you set up nested routers in the Angular router. So we're just going to, or in here we need to add the component router module to the imports there. Yep. So that's all we need to do. We don't have to do any for child or any declaring of anything else in there, because everything that we need is brought in through the through the components and directives.
Got it.
Yeah. So in the template for this one, we just want to add another a router component. Yep. And then inside of there, we want to add a route with a path just for slash. That just defaults to slash, because that's what we're going to render in here. And from there, we don't need to load anything else here, because we can just use the home component as it is in the template. Mm-hmm. So we're not doing something very magical, because to me, the way the router like renders things is very magical in that way. You're declaring something in a TypeScript class, and then that component kind of appears on the template. Sure. But in the component router, in between that route component, you can put your home component directly in the template there. So you know that it's a little more straightforward to connect the dots. Mm-hmm. So let's just open up that route component there. Open up the template for that route component. Or sorry,
the home component.
Yeah, online 10. Yeah, in between the route, just open it up. Yep, there you go. So in there, you would just put your BLS home
selector.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. The selector for your home component is what you would use there.
I just ripped that out of there because I don't tend to have a selector for anything I route, but that this makes total sense. So now I use it like this.
Yep. And the one thing that you do want to do here is add the route component directive onto that, which is just the asterisk and adding route component onto that.
Like this.
And that's just a signal to the router that this is in, basically it desugars that into an into a template ng template that it can use, because that's how the router works. It looks for a template reference in that particular route component, and that's where it knows where to render that route.
Got it. Okay, interesting. So now I'm going to hit save.
Okay, let's see. We got something going on in the console there.
Yeah, I can bump this up a little bit, I guess. Should. I'm not sure why it's not bumping up. There you go.
Okay, let's add one more thing here. In the home module, or at least from the Angular component router, let's import the module with route symbol, because we're going to extend. We're going to import that from the Angular component router package, because the home module is going to implement that interface.
Okay, yeah. Implement, and what is it?
It's going to be module with route.
There we go.
Yep. And so in there, it's going to tell you that you have to implement the route component, and that route component is just going to be the home route component there. So you just want to set set it equal to that.
Sign it here.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Now it renders twice. This is cool. We're making progress here. Okay, I like this. Let's get rid of this one for a second because we don't need it anymore. Okay, interesting. And,
yeah. So, so like I said, we see both routers working. We got two there. Yeah, probably because we still have multiple router outlets and things in there.
Yeah.
But
so I guess let's for a second get rid of this one because we also commented it out in the home in the app, but this already looks better. Okay, cool. And then let me rinse and repeat, because then I should be able to add here the contact route that I got selected here, so I can do contact. And then actually, so what I already like about this is that this no longer cares about the order of routes.
No, it does not. No, that is one thing that we did bake into this router, is that regardless of how you ordered them, because that is one thing that the Angular router, and like I said, this is me learning things over time about, building routers and things that I like and didn't like, is that you have to be specific about how you put your routes together, or you're going to end up with some unintended results.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people that have something, they have let's say contact, and then they have contact/detail, which is the ID, and then contact/create. But then create sits below the detail, and then it thinks the word create is your ID, and it looks up in your API, can't find a contact with the ID of create. Kind of not huge things, but definitely gotchas that you have to know. When you work with the router. So okay, so I'm gonna add posts, and and then here I do again contacts is here the contact without invoking it, and then same for posts. Should actually call this post.
Yep, and to your point, like you said before, some of these things allow you to be more dynamic with what you do as far as how your routes are set up, because like I said, to me, components are infinitely more composable than having to do them statically in code. So, I mean, there could be drawbacks of that too, because now, when you're doing things with TypeScript in the class, then you can probably statically analyze those things maybe a little better, or those are other options that you have. But For me, there was, and you remember that, you most likely remember this also, there was a time when there were no ng modules and we were still able to build Angular apps with just components, and we've been trying to like get back to that ever since they brought ng modules in at the last minute. It was like, no, what are you doing? What is this ng module thing? Yes, they existed in Angular JS, but we didn't want to bring them along with us, but you know, here they are. So
yeah, it's like you have to use this glue, otherwise it doesn't work. But nobody really likes the glue. You don't like the smell of it. You don't want to have it in your app. I mean, these days when I have to explain Angular to like juniors, don't do it a lot anymore. But I kind of like, yeah, just forget about it. This is the world they need to be in, and people need to import and export. Just don't think about too much about it. Just make sure your compiler is happy and do it. But it's not.
Yeah, and this was the, like I said, went into the talk that I gave at ngConf a couple of years ago, I think now, about ng modules, you know, being all about injectors and compilers and things like that. And those things are good, but I wanted the router to be more about components, because that's what we're trying to do at the, you know, like with the router, is we want to throw stuff on the screen, and we want to get to throwing stuff on the screen as quickly as possible. So that was, like I said, that was part of my motivation in trying to get that together, or awesome. hacking away at this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got the, like I said, we got the router or the home link and home rendering in there.
Let me see if I can do the contact module. So what I need, and I probably don't need to export it, so I can just say class contact route component. And this is decorated with component class and has only a template of my router or routes. Router, I guess it's router, and it has a route. Route of just path is just /, and then I need to add back in. First need to declare it. While we're at it, let's just ignore it for a second. I have to declare this stuff. Here I do add some detail. Actually, I want to go in the list. So contact list, and here I already removed it. So BLS contact list.
Yeah, you're on the I don't put any selectors.
Yeah. And actually,
no selectors on the route components train.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, and the way I defend it, if I have to, the way I defend the point is like it's kind of developer communication, because if you see a component and it doesn't have a selector, you're sure it's gonna be routed. And it kind of gives you an idea of not having to figure out where this thing is being used or how it's used. If you don't have a selector, you know it's being routed, or it's not being used at all. That might also be the case. But if it, so I guess you can directly see if it's what is it, a presentational or a container component, if you want to use that terminology. So I guess that's where it grew. And also, just like if it doesn't have any function, why put it there? So I guess that's also a thing.
Yeah, I'm actually on the even route component should have selectors, just because it gives me more definition of like when something goes wrong or something's not displaying correctly, you know, where the boundaries are of each component, because otherwise you're just going to get a bunch of ng components on in your DOM when you're looking at it on the page. Try to see what's showing and what's not.
Got it. I didn't figure about that one. So, and this is a module with routes. Route.
Yep, module with route.
Implement members. There we go. And then assign this one to my component. What is it? Contact route components.
Contact route component there.
There we go. And now my contact should render as well. So here we go. Contact doesn't render yet.
Let's see.
Something wrong.
Contact. Let's see. Oh, you had contacts, right, in the shell component.
Let me quickly circle back to that. Contacts with an S. Yeah, this is that contact. Loads the
Okay.
contact here.
Yep. Contact
Contact module.
module.
Then inside, might as well just get rid of this one for a second so that it's not.
Yeah, let's see. Contact list.
Is this
Route
one correct?
path.
Route component.
Yes, that looks correct to me. So let's see. What are we missing here? Contacts.
There you go.
Oh,
Hi.
what do we?
I
What
guess
did
like
you?
it looks like navigation doesn't work. Is there something
Oh, right.
special with router
We're
links?
using. Oh, right. Gotcha. We're using Angular router links with Angular component router.
Yes, sir.
What you just need to do is change that to a link to. Yep. There you go.
Okay, cool. And then the second one that probably. Okay, now I need to change my route so it's a /, so it's an absolute route.
Yeah, there you go.
That kind of makes sense. And now we're just going to go all the way back, refresh it one time. Contact list works. Home works. I think we don't have to redirect.
Yeah, we don't have any redirects in there now, but those are, you can definitely, we do have support for redirects also.
So this, and then I guess here it's just /.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So let's see if this gets us to a better place. Get rid of this one. There we go. Home routes, contact. We can switch back and forth.
Yep.
And then I guess router link active. I don't even know why it did work. It probably didn't work. It probably just worked because
you can. Yeah, we have a directive for adding active classes to links. Also, it's just called link active, and then you just put the class of what you want on there. Yep.
Okay, cool. And now it is active, even if I don't select the link itself. And okay, cool. This I can see how this works. And yeah, nice. And let me see. So one thing that let's quickly go into this list and add some. No, not this one. Into the list and add some items here. So items 1, 2, 3, and gonna have some ng container. So this is what I was supposed to do before meeting, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But let's item of items. And then I just have an A that says item with the item ID. And then, as you already said, link to. And
Yep.
then link to is going to have a just link to the relative thing.
Yep. Yep. Supports relative routes there also.
Cool. And let's add a quick diff so we actually see them in the list. That's not.
Now let's see. What do we got?
It might be HMR that doesn't like. Nope, it's not. Let's quickly open this one. Strict mode.
Oh, yeah.
number is not assignable. Like, you know what? We're just gonna say empty string plus item. We're gonna get a string for you there.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Strict mode. It's
Yeah,
us again.
gotta love it. So now we see in the bar. I can't zoom this one in, but if you see there, it says contact /2,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna go and figure out how to do this. So I guess the majority of this route is going to be the same. So I want to route to the detail. So I guess that's like this. So we need to have a separate path.
Yeah, you have a separate path for that one.
Separate path.
And then what you would just have in there is your ID or your contact ID.
Got it. Contact ID, just like so.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to make sure detail. Okay. Let's get rid of this ng uninit because we don't need it. And this we don't need either. Let's see if this compiles. It does. And item 2 doesn't crash.
Let's see. What do we? What are we missing here? Let's go back to here. Contact detail or contact ID. That looks correct to me. Okay, are we seeing anything in the console, or I can't see behind the or in the browser console?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we should.
I could try to restart that and see.
Yeah, I'm gonna restart that and see where this goes. Because, and this is why you should always have a real life example. Route, the activated route is also no longer
Oh, right.
in use here.
Yeah, we
So
do have something that you can get get those route components with, or sorry, route parameters with, but the route itself wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see.
So
Kind of
now
done
we
initially
have
routes. Let's refresh here as well. Home works.
home.
Contact list. Go to the ID here. It doesn't work.
Okay, let's see what's going on there. Looks like the console is clean as far as I can tell.
Correct. Yeah, I'll drag it up a little bit, but that's totally clean.
Okay, let's look at the elements in the DevTools there on the side, on the right side, and see if we can see what's going on there, if it's showing anything there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and open this one up. And Renato Carnero, he says he's just late. He just noticed, man, this declarative approach looks beautiful. Oh, it's I mean, it's growing on me. It probably also really helps if you use something.
Yeah,
So
let's see. So okay, so we got the shell.
Yeah,
and we can dive in there.
Yep, and then we have the main and then the router. And then we have the route here. And
yeah, so if we expand contacts, yeah, it should be in there.
It looks like it's empty.
Okay, so there's not an ngIf in the contact detail, or did it even route there?
So I'm actually now routing to it. So now it loads contact. Now it has ng component in here with router, and this actually shows our router.
Yep,
so now
shows
it's
the
empty.
two routes.
This one shows the contact list. And now I'm gonna click.
Okay,
it looks like it all refreshed.
Oh, let's go back to the home there, or sorry, it refreshed.
Is it
there?
Is it because of the relative link here? Should I?
Well, that should be. Yeah, let's try that. It should be contacts/ID.
Yeah, which is the item is directly the ID here.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it does. Yeah, if you don't specify but you were on the contacts route though, so that should have given you the correct one.
Home contacts.
Home contacts.
No.
Okay, let's look into what's in the contact detail component there. We're going to do some
detail. Yeah.
Okay, so we just got contact detail works there. Okay, let's go into the contact module.
Yep, contact module.
Oh, we got an error there.
This kind of looks like a message from the Angular router.
Yeah, I think we still have the for root.
Should we get rid of the whole router?
Sure, let's go for it. Let's just go to the app module, and we're just gonna
start with the app module.
Single router it up for a second, just so we have a baseline here. Let's go into the shell. Yeah, shell module
here as well, even though it's not used. Shell module, get rid of router module, and actually just clean it up, because this is also obviously a reason why you do this. It might clean it up nicely. Now we don't have any of the old router, and
Yeah, we just got a
So
shell component and our routes there.
yeah, we don't have any router links. We don't have any, I
Oh,
guess.
okay. I think I see what we need here. Um, if on the contacts route, let's add
Ah,
an binding, and we'll call it exact,
ah,
and we'll say that's false. Yeah, so that just says that we want to open up this route for further rendering. So there we go. So yeah,
awesome.
it's
Okay.
the paths are strictly matched by default. So if it matches that exact thing, then it'll
Yeah.
render it. But if you have like nested routes, then you want to set it to false, so that it
Yeah.
will say, I need to look further once the rest of the component loads or the routes load.
Makes total sense. And this is actually, did you look at the React router or work with it? Like Angular router
I
in
have
React
looked at
dashboard?
it before. Yeah, the Angular component router is definitely inspired by React router, and also looked at the way the Svelte router does. There's one called Svelte routing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely has some inspiration from those there also. Just
Yeah.
the way it kind of set the setup and how everything works there.
Got it. Yeah, definitely makes sense. And then, okay, so we're in the contact detail. Now here, I'd like to get hold of my ID so I can pass it to obviously my NGRX store so I can make it do work. Do I inject something or is that?
So what you can inject here is the route params. Route param is going to give you an observable of all the route parameters, and this is actually strictly typed. So it's just set to an object by default. But if you want to type what those parameters are, then in the route params, it takes a type on the end, and you can just say this is an object of contact ID, which is a string.
Like so?
Yep.
Huh.
And so that way, when you use the route, uh, it will give you that particular. It will, you can enforce that type of what those parameters are that are supposed to be coming through.
Contact ID. There it is. Okay, this is pretty awesome. Let's print
Yep,
this
and then that way
out.
you can extend that. You can extend that type safety to your templates there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you
Yeah.
get that
Yeah. Yeah.
nice IntelliSense there.
Yeah. Yeah. It already filled this one in for me.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And then I guess query params, same deal.
Yep, you just inject. Now that is one, like I said, one thing that's different. Here, you would just inject query params as a separate thing in your constructor. Uh,
Yeah, sure.
so that way, if you never need route params, then you don't have to, add that to your bundle here, or add that to your component here. So definitely uh, a different approach to where you get a little more streamlined with what you actually bring into your components.
Yeah. But I think it's more seems more fine grained.
Mm-hmm.
But then this gives me, and then of course classic stuff where you do have two async pipes. But let's not try to optimize it too much today.
Yeah, so then you get your you
Then
got your query params,
it
and like I said,
complains like, "Hey, I
it's
don't
like, hey,
see."
what are you doing? You don't have
Yeah,
contact ID in your query params.
yeah,
Uh, so you get that too. And like I said, everything is all of them are observables, as opposed to having just maybe static properties. So that way you can just throw them on the async pipe and just use them.
debug. I need to say debug.
Yep.
Debug is true, and then I guess boolean for this one wasn't too because I guess router parameter is always a string as
Yeah.
far
It
as I'm
still
concerned.
still comes
Yeah,
through. Yeah, still comes through as a string.
yeah, that's kind of detailed. Okay, this is pretty interesting. Now, one thing that let me click back to where this is used. One thing that got me here was like, is there anything that prevents me either like technically or just like you shouldn't do that, V-man, that says,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm gonna have inputs here. and I'm gonna say like I want to pass some data along, because now that we do it like this, I can say okay, input, let's say item, and then type any, just because I like I like people cringing about any. This,
Living dangerously.
yeah, I love the gatekeepers, and they're like, oh, be a, don't teach people like this. Well, yeah, I do. Use any if you like. It's your app. And then I can have like an item here that has like key equals value. Then I guess I can just pass this in here as well. That's like,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
yeah.
just components at this point.
Yeah, we're just at this point we're just using components. There's no extra magic there. If you want to
Yeah.
define an input there, it's just as if you would have dropped it in the template yourself.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Interesting. And I guess so down the line, if all goes well, Angular, I don't know, let's be relaxed here and say Angular 15 ships
Hmm.
without like optional ng modules is the thing. So we're gonna have a depth array here.
Hmm.
Then you really I guess you can already see that you no longer need the components. If I can say, you know what, this thing depends on my contact list here and the contact detail, is
Yep.
probably what you end up with then.
Yep.
And
That could
and
yep.
this,
That could be a world without ng modules. That you
yeah,
could still have all the dependencies that you want, and still just use your components the same way you do today.
yeah, right. And Renato asked, what about output? Well, I guess output we're just using now. It's components all the way down, so we can also wire
Hmm.
up outputs. We can have a router, a component store here.
Yep.
Hmm. Interesting. Anything you like to show before I start thinking what I've been thinking since I started typing this? Because I got something I I think, anything where you like to show off of the router that we didn't touch on yet.
One thing we didn't touch on is like conditional routes, like using ngIf.
Hmm.
So that maybe would be one thing that is a little different, in that you could use. Uh, what about dollar? Sorry, I was looking at the chat. What about dollar on the observables? Is that not a thing
It's here,
anymore?
Kate. It's right here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He had broke it down already
yeah,
or reassigned it in the template there.
yeah. Alex Cruisco told me I should always private read only, and so
Mm.
like Alex said, do it, and we do it at Google. I was like, okay, I'll just rewrite my apps. Yeah.
uh,
So conditional components. So interesting. That
yeah, so if we go back to the shell component
component now.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So let's say that the contacts, we don't want to render that unless something is true.
Hmm.
So we could just do that in a template. You could just throw an ng. Yep, let's set that to false, and just throw an ngIf the on that route there, and
Like
say
this.
we don't want. Yep, we don't want to show contacts anymore.
And then I can have a button to say enable contacts that on click says show contacts is the negative value of show
Yeah,
contacts.
like I
Like
said, we're gonna
this.
see if this breaks.
Wouldn't be the first breakage in this show, in this
There you
episode.
go.
Homeworks, contacts, it does route, but it doesn't
Yeah, it does
show.
route there, but it doesn't
Yeah.
show.
Let's
Yeah.
ignore posts because we didn't do posts. But home is here. Now go contacts, and now I can just enable
Well,
it.
yep. So the yeah, if you ngIf on that and it resolves to false, then that route is effectively not part of the routes that it looks at for rendering. So like I said, if you had like an admin route, you could just throw an ngIf on that and just use it with an async pipe and an observable. And if the user is not authenticated, then that route is not even registered for them to be a part of. So that is one thing you could use. Another quick thing you could use the ngIf syntax for.
It's interesting that you mention it right now, because there's two questions actually in the chat. I'm not even going to pop them up the screen, but have you guys spoke about guards? And then, yeah, I'm curious about guards and as well syntax for routing to some other part of the app from within the component. So yeah, this was one of the things I had in mind. Thanks for reminding me, Evan. Yeah, like I think we all do. What is it? In our code, like you save some item and now you want to navigate to the detail page. Is that still a thing? Can we still have?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there is a router service also that you can use to navigate programmatically in your app.
Let's do that here. So let's say constructor private read only, and that's router service.
So we're going the it's just router. Yep. That is the one of the things that is familiar in that way, is that you do have a router service.
Okay, and then
and you just say I want to go. You just say router.go. Yep. And then if that, like I said, it follows the same structure as the path there. So if you or same relative absolute rule there. So if you give it an absolute path, then it's going to use that instead of building off of where you are.
Got it. Okay, so let me quickly add this one, and I guess so. I keep on writing the single quote, but it keeps on fixing me. It keeps on helping me. So now we're in kind of a contrapture, but we first have to enable it, and now I can programmatically go to these routes using this programmatical thing, and we can like console log out, hey, route, and actually go here, enable context. Okay, yeah, I like how it goes. So I was say it keeps state, but the URL is actually state. It's probably the old state management system in the whole browser. It's the URL. And
we're just bringing state to you in another way. At the end of the day, probably what the router's doing.
I love it. And I actually added this /context because we were debugging, but that was a whole other issue. So let's go back to this relative route here and make sure that this works as well. So I'm going to go to contact, enable contacts here, and do the relative route. Just works as expected.
Yep.
We had some other thing that broke. Awesome. Yeah, people in the audience, if you have any other questions, do scream. There's one thing that I kind of interested in, because I like what I see here, and I actually like it a lot. And I can definitely see how this is a compelling way to do your routes. Now, what I'm wondering, is there anything that prevents me from doing this? Say I got load here. And let's say home, basically bring this thing that you're loading over to my structure.
Oh, I see.
Probably over there going.
I think I see where we're going. Let's see where you're going, and then we'll see if we're headed down the same path here. Because if I'm thinking correctly, you like to make all the things as dynamic as possible so that you don't have to fiddle with a bunch of configuration and things.
Templates are not my thing, I guess. I just don't like writing HTML. Let's get this. So this would get me link.path. I guess, yeah, link.path, then link.load, which is what I call this thing. Link.load.
Kate had a question. Do I use the effects to navigate with NGRX? No, this is completely decoupled from NGRX itself, but you could use effects to navigate in that way. If that answers your question.
Reformat with prettier. I need to quickly reformat this here. I got an error. Of course, I got an error.
Yeah, another question. The only thing. Oh, sorry. I'm reading the questions. This is your show.
No, go ahead. Be my guest. You are my guest. I mean, please, by all means.
Okay. He said the only thing right now is the ngIf on the route as false, changing the URL but not showing the component. Is that intended? Yes, it is, because that would be something that you have control over, whether you want to redirect them to somewhere else, based on that. So it's not going to prescribe a way for you to like automatically navigate somewhere else, because that is one thing that we've seen here, is that there's no concept of guards or resolvers, because they're components. You can restrict them however you want to, just using Angular, what you're used to using with Angular. So yeah,
definitely like where this is going. And I guess so now home works, the list works, the item works, and this one doesn't work.
let's see, the contact one should be exact false, and the
Of
other
course.
two should be true. Yeah,
There you go. So I guess if I can make a feature request, can you just add this one as a existing component, so I can just feed it in an array? So what I'm
oh,
this
I
is
see.
probably
Yeah,
this is probably typed. I guess you have a type for this, or is
yeah,
uh,
there's a type route type, I believe, that you can import. Yeah, another one of those, a route array. Yeah, yep,
Sure.
there you go.
Then it doesn't like exact.
Let's see.
It doesn't exist in routes. So probably this is something that.
Oh, okay, maybe that one is only for the directive, but that it could be something we could add, though.
Let's get another any, because why not? They're free to
Because
use.
why not? Oh, I think you need a parentheses around that, maybe around the route any. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, and so this is definitely when I see something like this, and this is kind of circles back to how I said when I use React Router, I tend to move it all along here, because it's I guess it's also less verbose. It's easier to figure out, and you can create some helper methods. But I really like to see that this is still possible, and that this would definitely be something that I would back up in a component. Like let's call it UI router, because I like the previous line. Kind of
No, we can't
better.
have another. You can't have another UI router. We already got. They have an Angular. It has an Angular counterpart also.
Oh, they do actually. Yeah, they do. And yeah. Oh man, I'm definitely excited. I'm not going to leave this here. What I'm going to do is copy this over, and I'm going to revert what we are having, because I'd like my example to be more idiomatic and have it as some sort of a reference.
I see.
Guess I need to pick this one up as well. Do this engine.
But yeah, I'm glad you're kicking the tires on it, son, and seeing what it can do and how we can make it better.
I
and
guess.
There's another question. How about routing events? There aren't any routing events yet, but we were looking at maybe adding some events on that kind of feed off the route component directive, or sorry, the route component that'll give you events. That'll give you events like when the route is activated and deactivated. So, but there isn't like any end-to-end events in that way just yet.
Yeah.
Like I said, the router, we wanted definitely a simpler mental model around routing, but we're still. I know it's not like fully done, complete, and everything, but yeah, it's enough to get you started with.
That's awesome. So Chow asks, Chow always, did you change his mind? So I guess this is a question for me. He asked you, well, what do you think, Brandon? Did you change my mind?
I think that you will have to see how much more you can to like what I want to say, isolate away the setup and things. But I think you've seen what it does and how the things that you didn't have to do per se, as far as like fiddling with route definitions and having to worry about components being brought out of thin air, rendered out of thin air, basically.
Yeah.
So you have something that you more or less have something you can see and get going with. So we'll see. I think the jury's still out.
Yeah, definitely. But it's definitely a contestant. I think it's the best, at least the best Angular router next to the official one. I'm gonna give you that.
So are there any other ones? No, I'm pretty sure that someone else has written some.
This is the UI router for Angular 2 Plus, but I haven't
used
that.
Yeah,
honestly.
That's true.
Yeah,
I haven't used that one either.
No, it's definitely interesting, and in a module where ng modules are optional, I can definitely see myself defaulting to something like this. Mm-hmm. I guess there's something to say for using the default in general. Using defaults in general, if you can make it work, that's great, because somebody joins your app and they understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best way to get to know it is to build an app with it. That's with most things. Best way to get familiarized with it is actually use it.
Yeah, that's true. So like I said, these are all those are all good points about using the default that comes with Angular, and like I said, but in order for at least Angular to continue to grow and continue to be popular, then we got to push the boundaries where we can, and who knows, maybe some of these things will trickle back into the Angular router once we get, like I said, full-blown optional ng modules and all that. And some people just may like the declarative approach, and I think that's a good option that Angular should have also. Yeah. So if 90% of people use Angular router, and then there's a 10% of people that use this one, I'm fine with that. So this was my idea for a router that the potential for Angular to have. So that's why I put it together.
It's awesome. Yeah, great. I'm going to quickly answer Chow's question. Yes, Chow, there's route data. No, route data. We didn't mention route data. Is there, I guess.
So there's no. Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. I want to see what your answer is going to be.
My answer will be you don't need it, because you can pass stuff in as any other Angular component. So you don't need route data. Is this the official answer?
Yes. You don't have where are you going to get it from? Like, the component's already there, so you already have something to pass to it. So you can just define that yourself. And like I said, part of all these things build on top of the existing Angular that you already know. Yeah. So we're not adding, and that's also less on the library. Less things that the library is adding to, like, your bundle size, if you're into that sort of thing. So at this point, you're still just using Angular stuff that you would use anyway.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a great point, and it seems also very natural to use it this way. And I'm gonna share this one right here. Let me see how I do this. I'm so well prepared.
The repo has some other examples also. If anyone wants to go back and look at those, that shows how you can do, like, declarative routing with recursive routes and routes based on, like, media queries. There's some other examples in there also.
That's interesting.
That you could do with that too. And Miro worked on those too, because he's helped out. I don't want to not mention him, because he's helped out a ton also on the project.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. So go check out github.com/angular-component/router.
Yeah. So Angular component is the org there. Router is the thing there now. There potentially could be other, like, declarative things that we could add there, but that's the one that we have. And I'm still looking for a logo. Hint, hint. People who can do design and things. I need a logo. I need a nudge, wink. I need a logo for the Angular component org. So if anybody wants to help there, that would be fun.
I guess if you want to get it more exposure, you're welcome to promote it a little bit in the Angular Discord.
Yeah.
you might know somebody who
I
can help you set
wonder
up
who
that.
can I help? Who can I ask? I wonder who can I get to help me with the Angular Discord? I'll have to see. I have to check my contacts and see
Yeah,
see
go
who can
check it
help
out.
me.
I guess Chow's library has a channel there, so you could just can ask him what he did.
Okay.
And I guess one more question, and then we really have to go because I got another meeting about the Angular Discord. But
Okay, cool.
could you possibly use component lifecycle as a replacement for some router events?
Sure. If you want to hook into the lifecycle, the component lifecycle, I mean, you're getting all the same. It's not doing anything different. You're still getting the ng on init, on destroy, all those things. So, I mean, let's say if we're thinking crazy about it, you could have an output that emits something that lets you know when it gets destroyed that you could handle in the outer component. So there's, like I said, with components, with everything just being components, like you can probably drum up a bunch of different ways to do it. So
yeah, I guess thanks a lot for your questions, MJ Meyer. I guess just go ahead and play with it. That's what I just did, and we got it working pretty fast. Brandon, thanks so much for showing me around. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm glad I was able to get on and the schedule aligned, and we even made it past the minor hiccup there. So
yeah, very cool. Is there anything you like to plug, people to know about, people that should check it out besides the Angular component router?
I don't have anything else to plug. I think we've plugged it all. You can check out where I work at narwhal.io. I will plug that narwhal.io, nx.dev. We just revamped the docs there. As I mentioned, we love the docs, so definitely check that out. And if you have some spare time, check out the Angular component router and give me some feedback. Like I said, it's there. Like I said, we've walked through it in an Angular 12 space, and everything worked fine. So definitely like some more feedback there on what we can do for it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So yeah, follow Brandon on Twitter and definitely check out NXDev. It's renewed, written in Next.js. I know people don't like it, but I love it. Smart choice for a website.
Yep.
Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for watching. This was BLS, and I'll see you at the next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.